Hello, hello. My name is Quiet Mike. I've taken the NCLEX 3 times and I passed my last try. In this video, I'm going to answer one of your questions that you guys have sent me. Hey, Quiet Mike. Is it hard to find a nursing job if you are a foreign grad? What are your tips for interview? I hope you can make a video about finding and getting a nursing job, especially for foreign grads. Thanks. Well, thank you very much for sending me the question. This too was one of my own questions because I didn't know whether or not if me graduating from the Philippines would give people a different impression of me, of how I practice nursing. Around my town, around the area, the Filipinos have built a good reputation of being very skilled nurses. I don't know how that is for you. If that is so, maybe you want to give this video a thumbs up. I do have a cousin that lives in California and he took the NCLEX there, but before he could take the NCLEX, he actually had to take extra classes. I believe he finished his nursing in the 80s or the 90s, somewhere around there. Actually couldn't get a job in California because of his credentials and he had to take extra classes. Although he graduated as a bachelor's in nursing from the Philippines, he was working as an LPN for a while. And then he took extra classes for his bachelor's of nursing here. And then he took the NCLEX and passed it in 250 questions. Then some of my fellow alumni who graduated a couple years before me, or even just the recent year before me, they winded up having trouble when going to California as well. They winded up having to take extra classes too. My class 2015, they were able to take their NCLEX and not have to take extra classes. Generally in the state of California, it seems like it's hard to get a job as a nurse because they won't accept your educational credentials. So you'll eventually have to take classes there. So they'll have you take classes again, just so you can get your BSN and be qualified as an RN. So California may have you take classes for them. For me here in New Jersey, I didn't have much of a problem finding a job and it didn't give me extra trouble because I was a foreign grad. What gave me extra trouble when finding a job was the experience. Everyone is looking for experience. So for me, I couldn't just pick whatever area I wanted to work at or whatever was available. I wound up trying to look for things like med-surg and telemetry. Let's just see. I took note of how many applications it took me before I wound up getting a job. I wound up sending 12 applications out. And then on my 9th one, I got interviewed and hired. For some of the places that I applied to, it says that my application was under review, but for the longest time. And then some others were nice enough to have an electronic email and say that I was rejected and I didn't meet the requirements. So of the 12 applications, I only went to 2 interviews. So my first interview was at a hospital. It was actually the hospital that my mom works at. I was applying for med-surg telemetry. So for me, this was going to be my first interview ever, never had a job or anything. I went to my cousin for tips. Then he told me, when it comes to job interviews, every time that I dress up in a suit, you know, dress nicely in business attire, I wind up not getting the job. But when I go in and I wear scrubs, I get the job. So naturally for me, because I didn't know any better and I was willing to try whatever, I went to my first job interview with scrubs. The person that I interviewed with, she was nice, she was very kind. I do recommend a list of questions you may want to contemplate though, and I'll leave that in the description because some of those questions that were in this list that I looked at before and tried to make answers for, she asked. Like, oh, what are you up to? What have you been doing? This one was so nice that she even decided to give me tips for any future interviews that I may have. And at that point, I kind of did think that she was going to deny me and not go for any further interviews. She did ask for 2 things though. She asked for a copy of my resume, which I assumed that would be in their database and she would have right in front of her. And then the second thing was a letter of recommendation. She said that she likes to personally see, you know, she said that she personally likes to read over, you know, what kind of experience this mentor or coworker, or for me, clinical instructor had with me while I was still in school or while we were working together. So I failed to present those 2 things. And she suggested that I should come in business attire instead of scrubs. So the next interview that I did have, I ended up coming in business attire and lo and behold, on the spot, they hired me. I didn't get too many questions asked my second interview, but yeah. If you're wondering what happened for the first interview, there had to be a follow-up interview also, but because I got hired at my second interview, I winded up not following up with the first place. So if you're a foreign grad and you're concerned with not being hired right away because you're from another country, I tell you that there are places that definitely need nurses, especially places with the elderly. So yeah, that's my experience with job interviews. But my tips for you, don't freak out in your interview. Although this may be your first interview ever, or maybe it's not, it's a formality. It's the opportunity for you to meet face-to-face with your employer, for your possible co-workers. You're gonna give your first impressions to them. If I was an employer, I too would like to meet with the kind of people that I would be working with or who would be under me. Now, is this person going to be able to talk to strangers? Can they deal with other people in stressful situations? In healthcare, although your mind may be set to help out people, it's not always the most perfect situation for you to be able to help someone. There may be patients who may be unpleasant. There may be some stressful situations where you have to prioritize different things, or everybody's calling you and there's so many needs to be attended to. And the person interviewing you may want to see who you really are, or get a taste of who you really are and what you would do in the stressful situations. I mean, no matter what, the job has to be done. What has to be done has to be finished. Can they count on you to do the job? If you're a newbie like me, obviously you're not going to be a masterful nurse, but definitely show that you're willing to learn and that you really do care what happens at that institution or whatever agency you're applying for. Be the kind of professional that you would like taking care of you. My second tip for you is to reflect on your values and your goals in life so that you can apply it to your career. And this will definitely go hand in hand with your confidence. You want to be able to set the tone in your interview. You want to be able to set the tone for your work because, you know, you're going to hold yourself to this certain standard. And these are the things that you're expecting out of yourself, or even, you know, to go beyond these expectations. You want to make your presence count. I'm glad that they never asked me, you know, why do you want this job? And for most people, it would be like, well, duh, because you're hiring. Although a career in healthcare is great, is it really about the money for you? Is it really about counting your hours and counting your time? Or is it really about making time count and really giving your best to your patients who really need your help? These healthcare institutions who have missions and visions about the quality of their care that they give, you know, if they see that you really don't care for the patients and that you're all about yourself and you can do all these things, think to yourself, is this something that you really want? Is this really the career that you want to be at? Do you really want to go further in this line of work? Because if you don't want to be there, you're going to be miserable, and that may affect the kind of care and work that you do with others. My third tip for you is to be open and also brief. It is an interview and there are a lot of questions, but they're not going to ask you for a whole novel of your life story. You know, you want to give them the highlights. You know, what was your experience in this part of the world, in the Philippines, or, you know, what was going on at this area of work that you were doing. They want to know where you're coming from, and, you know, they want to give you an idea of what you're getting yourself into. In addition, you may want to have extra documents on you, like a copy of your resume, and you may want to have a couple recommendation letters, maybe like 2 or 3. They want to get to know you. What kind of person are we hiring? And if whether or not these tips helped you or they didn't help you, let me know. I hope a glimpse of my experience and the tips that I shared with you have been helpful. And if you have any more ideas for videos that you'd like me to make, or any questions or comments, do feel free to leave a comment down below. So with all that said, study well, rest best, and pray the most. God bless.